Imagine if you were, I don't know, Angelina Jolie. If you were someone who is mega famous and you've got paparazzi waiting outside of your house, waiting to take some quick snaps of you, and they're really intruding and interfering in your private life, then I don't think this is a good thing. I don't think they should be allowed to do it. But I suppose fame comes at a price. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to British English Pod with me, Lewis, and we're back once again for another podcast about a specific topic. And I'll tell you the topic of the week, which is actually the topic that I was discussing with my students last week, and we looked at some expressions, some idioms, a dialogue, all of these things related to celebrities and fame as well. So that is what I'm going to be discussing today, celebrities and fame. But before we get into the PowerPoint and the nitty gritty of the podcast, well, tell me, who do you think is the most famous person in your country? I don't know where you're from, but tell me in the comments and let me know. Who's the most famous person from your country? Because maybe 2 months ago, I made a podcast about this topic, about the 20 most famous British people of all time, and there is a long, long list. We could think of different sports people, royal family members, artists. There is a long list of famous British people. And I'm not sure who is actually the most famous. I would say it was the Queen. Now, unfortunately, she passed away a few years ago. So after the Queen, I think maybe the most famous person is probably David Beckham. But that might be just because I'm biased. You know, I'm partial to thinking that because I'm into footy and I'm a big football fan. But yeah, in your country, who is, in your opinion, the most famous person? I wonder if I know these people or not. And another thing, another little quick question. How's your week been? What have you been up to? How's work been? Did you have a good weekend? Have a think about how you would answer these questions so you can almost pretend that you are in my classes. Because in class, well, I ask a lot of questions. I'm constantly asking my students questions. So I'll start by saying, hey, how are you? Then I'll continue asking some follow up questions about the weekend, about work. How did you sleep? What did you have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? And so on and so forth. Because the more questions you answer, the more you are thinking in English and using your English at the same time. And that's a little reminder that if anybody would like to have classes with me, then I'll leave a link in the video description so you can either download my application or you can join my private or group classes. And that is all the promo I'm going to be doing today. And I've also got my usual little cup of espresso because I often record this podcast when I have a little break, a little pause between classes. So I've just had a bite to eat. I actually got some Tupperware from yesterday that we had some roasted vegetables. So I've just warmed up those roasted vegetables in the microwave, added a little bit of feta cheese, and had it with some pita bread. And I don't know if you ever heard this comment before, but in my opinion, feta makes everything better. Huh? 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 Feta cheese makes everything better? It's not exactly a joke, but I think it's a nice little comment. If you are ever eating feta cheese and you like feta cheese, then you can say, oh, nice one. Feta. Feta makes everything better, doesn't it? But anyway, let's get started with the main part of the pod. And we're going to begin with 6 different conversation questions related to the topic fame and celebrities. And the first question is simply, is fame worth the loss of privacy? Is fame worth the loss of privacy? Well, first I'm going to begin by saying that I do not consider myself to be a famous person, and the amount of times people have recognized me in Brussels or Spain or elsewhere is minimal. So, despite technically being an influencer, I don't class myself as an influencer, but rather just an English teacher with a social media following, which is a tool in order to do my job and do marketing. Because at the end of the day, social networks, if you're using them as a work tool, it's just a way of reaching more people. So that's why I post so many videos, and it is to have perhaps another source of income, but also to promote my classes and my products. So we'll return to that topic, but yeah, I don't class myself as a famous person. So as a result, I haven't really had a loss of privacy. I think I still have a very, very private life, despite telling you about what's happening in my life, where I'm going on holiday, the fact that I'm getting married. I share these things to provide you with interesting, comprehensible input, but to be honest, I don't feel like I'm being observed. There is no surveillance in my flat. So that's my situation. And to be honest, if I think that I'm going to lose privacy by becoming more famous, so to speak, then I don't think I'd like it. Because if people approach me in the street or they say something to me, I reckon I get quite nervous. I get a little bit, I don't know, anxious, or maybe I'm surprised and I'm thrown off guard. And this is me. I'm not famous. Not a lot of people know me. But imagine if you were Brad Pitt. Imagine if you were, I don't know, Angelina Jolie. If you were someone who is mega famous and you've got paparazzi waiting outside of your house, waiting to take some quick snaps of you, and they're really intruding and interfering in your private life, then I don't think this is a good thing. I don't think they should be allowed to do it. But I suppose fame comes at a price, because often when you get famous, you also get rich. And I'm sure for many people, the dream would be to get rich without becoming famous. So that way you don't lose privacy. So to sum up my answer to this question, even though I've been beating around the bush a little bit and going off topic, I would say that fame probably isn't worth the loss of privacy. And I reckon if you ask lots of famous people if they could go unknown and be completely anonymous, they would jump at the opportunity. They would bite your hand off, say, yes, I want to be anonymous. I don't want to be recognized. I don't want people coming up to me and asking for selfies. So perhaps privacy is more important than fame. And now let's move on to the second question. And this second question is, can social media influencers be as important as traditional celebrities? So can social media influencers be as important as traditional celebrities? Now, I would say that traditional celebrities are actors, musicians, athletes, people who are constantly in the spotlight, and they've got journalists writing about them. And now, over the last decade, this has changed quite a lot, where it's become easy for anybody to become recognizable. So with Instagram, TikTok, all of these applications, if you start posting videos and these videos start to go viral, then you can quite quickly become a public figure and a public face. There are many people, models, for example, who, well, if they're very good looking and they post videos, the algorithm of Instagram will usually push this to more people. Because I think in human nature, we are attracted to people who are attractive. So if you're scrolling up and down on Instagram, it's common when you see someone who's very, very attractive, you maybe slow down or you pause, like, oh, she's beautiful, or oh, he's handsome. And I think everybody does do this, whether you're in a relationship or not. So that's how people, social media influencers, can little by little become more influential than other famous traditional celebrities. And I'll go a step further. If we think about the Kardashians, they are maybe the most famous family in the world. And how did they get famous? Well, they got famous simply by showing the way they live, the luxurious manner in which they live. And I think this started out on TV with reality TV programs, but then it transcended into becoming a social media influencer as well. And if you think about the amount of times you can directly promote something if you have your own audience on Instagram, compared to promoting something through advertisements of reality TV, I mean, there is no comparison. It's clear that you can promote more if you have your own audience and you can post stories, reels, and all of these things. So, for that reason, I would say that maybe social media influencers aren't as important, but they are more influential. If you are a follower and you are following, you might be tempted to buy something directly from the social media influencers channel than if you are watching something on TV. That's what I think. Let me know what you think. Can social media influencers be as important or influential as traditional celebrities? Let's see if you agree or disagree with me. And now the third question is, can fame change people's personalities? Wow. Can fame change people's personalities? Many people, I'm sure, will say no. And I think your true core personality will likely stay the same. But given that your surroundings are going to change a lot, if you grew up in a small town and you didn't know a lot of the world, you didn't know a lot of people, and then all of a sudden you rise to stardom and become a public figure, then it's gonna have an influence on you. The fame will likely go to your head and you'll start to believe it. And at that point, I think it's natural and almost inevitable for you to start believing these things. So I don't know if it changes your personality and the way you behave all of the time, and it won't change your soul and your heart, but I think it will have an influence on you and make you behave in different ways. Because we usually behave in a very similar way to our circle. So if you're always hanging around with a group of 5 people, and all of these 5 people are very, very chatty, then chances are their behavior will rub off on you and you will also become very chatty as well. I think this is scientifically proven that we pick up personality traits from our friends. That's why your parents always tell you when you're at school that it's important to hang out with a good group, a good crowd, and not get influenced by a bad crowd, which could make you go in a different direction in life because we tend to copy people's behavior around us. A funny thing related to that is sometimes when I speak Spanish in a slightly feminine way because to improve my Spanish, I was shadowing my fiance. So she is a woman and she speaks in a feminine way. So when I try to copy her pronunciation, maybe some things will kind of sink into my way of speaking, which aren't the most masculine. So that's just a random example. And another example I could tell you is that Harry Styles, you know, the famous singer from One Direction, he also has the song like Watermelon Sugar, duh, Watermelon Sugar, duh, something like that. Well, when he auditioned on X Factor, I think it was, probably 15 years ago now, he was a very charismatic, kind of cheeky, chatty boy from this town near Manchester. And instantly you could connect with his personality. He had a very infectious personality when he was auditioning on the show. And that was one of the reasons why Simon Cowell, back in the day, the judge on X Factor, chose him to set up this boy band, One Direction, which of course went on to be a huge hit, a smash hit. And now, the band, of course, doesn't exist anymore. They all have their solo careers. But he is the one who stands out. And he stands out because he has this charismatic personality, not necessarily because he sings better than other people. And I think this personality hasn't really changed, but his surroundings have changed so much that I'm sure a lot of his friends from his childhood will maybe criticize him and think, oh, Harry, you've changed so much. You used to be so humble, used to be so honest, and now look at you. The fame has gone to your head. It might happen. I'm not sure. Okay, let's keep going. My next question is number 4. Should celebrities be role models? And why or why not? And to clarify, a role model is somebody that should set a positive example for younger people, and they're a model to follow. So should celebrities be role models? Why or why not? Without a shadow of a doubt, celebrities should be positive role models. Because if young children, young teenagers see celebrities showing acts of kindness, volunteering, donating time and money, being inclusive, being friendly, being polite, not being rude, if this is shown to the next generation, then they're going to pick up these habits and they will see that that is how you are supposed to behave. While on the contrary, if, for example, you have kids who are watching certain footballers who are always diving and swearing and complaining and seeing racist or sexist remarks, then children will see this as natural and, for no fault of their own, they will copy these behaviors. So absolutely, celebrities should be seen as role models, and we should have different celebrities in the public eye so that people with different color skin, religions, uh, sexual preferences can see that it is possible to become successful like their role models. So, yes, if you are in the public eye, I believe you have a responsibility to promote healthy, respectful behavior and become a role model. Okay, hopefully you agree. If not, let me know in the comments. All right, and the next one is number 5. Is fame more accessible now than in the past? Is fame more accessible now than in the past? I think I touched on this earlier. I briefly mentioned it by saying the power of social media because you can post videos very, very easily. It has become democratized. That's the pronunciation. Democratized. So becoming famous has become an option for everybody. With your phone, you can post videos, stories, and it can reach so many people in hours. For example, I was watching a really, really cool video from a really nice Instagram channel the other day, which is called A Mug of Life. Check it out, everybody. And essentially, it's a guy who I think is a filmmaker from somewhere in the UK, and it appears he lives in London. And what he does is he walks around different parks and areas of London and the rest of England, maybe beyond England, actually. And he takes a flask with tea and milk and sugar, different mugs, and he will go up to strangers and he will immediately ask them, "Excuse me, I don't suppose you'd like a cup of tea?" Which is a nice, polite way of saying, "Would you, by any chance, be interested in having a cup of tea with me?" And then he explains that he is a filmmaker and he offers people a cup of tea for free to then sit down on a bench and have a chat and more or less interview them about their life. But that's up to the interviewee. It's up to the other person if they want to share things about their life or not. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I was looking at his profile and I think he's posted like 50 videos, and every single video gets over 1 million views. So he must have been doing this for 6 months, perhaps a year. And this is the power of great storytelling online nowadays, that you don't need lots of funding. You don't need a company to back you. You don't need a studio. You don't need all of the equipment. With an interesting, creative, and innovative idea and a great personality, doing something different can become viral in a matter of minutes. And I definitely recommend watching this Instagram channel, A Mug of Life, because it's great to hear random people's stories. And it's an amazing way to have some comprehensible input in English as well. So check that out. And that's why I say that I agree that fame is definitely more accessible now than it was in the past. Because in the past, this would have never become popular. Because the only way that you could get eyes on it and get people to watch this kind of stuff would be if it was on TV. And to be on TV, you need a lot of support and a lot of contacts and a lot of money. Nowadays, just having a phone can give you the platform to become well known and perhaps famous. And now one more question. Who is the most influential celebrity today and why? Now, you're probably not going to like my answer. I don't like my own answer, but I think it is a no-brainer. Without doubt, in February 2026, the most famous person, and I would class him as a celebrity rather than a politician, to be honest, is Donald Trump. I mean, we can't avoid it. I think it was 1 month ago at Davos, which was this big financial gathering between world leaders in Switzerland. Donald Trump was the talk of the town. Everybody was whispering and wondering what he was going to say. Of course, this is because he had threatened to invade Greenland, which is absolutely bonkers. It's mental. And he's the most powerful man in the world at the moment. And that could possibly make him a very, very dangerous man as well. And yeah, there is nobody in the world, I don't think, who doesn't know who Donald Trump is. And of course, he's a very old man. He has had a long life full of controversies, to say the least. But yeah, I think he's a celebrity, and he is probably the most influential celebrity right now today. I wish that weren't the case, but I'm afraid it is, without a shadow of a doubt, as I said. But let's be more positive, because I tried to see the glass half full, you know? Here I've got my glass of water, and it's definitely more than half full. So, a phrasal verb, look up to. Do you look up to any celebs? Do you look up to any celebrities? And look up to is to admire. So, do you admire any celebrities? And by the way, another similar phrasal verb, but with an opposite meaning, is look down on. So, some people, maybe the rich and famous, may look down on migrants. They feel superior to migrants, for example. So to look down on is to feel superior to others. And look up to is to admire. So I'm not sure if I look up to that many celebrities, but off the top of my head, I'm going to tell you one celebrity who's very, very old as well, who I definitely look up to. And his name is Sir David Attenborough. Sir David Attenborough. And he is a famous scientist, anthropologist, and he is the guy behind all of these BBC documentaries of wildlife and nature, like Blue Planet, all of these BBC documentaries that usually end with planet are narrated by David Attenborough. And he's a Londoner, a man from London, who is 90 years old, maybe closer to 100 years old. And all his life, he has been traveling the world and he has been documenting the wildlife in different countries and regions, whilst explaining the need for protection of these natural places to prevent animals from going extinct. So he's always trying to look out for endangered animals. And to be honest, I'm jealous of David Attenborough because I think about all of the places that he has visited and all of the things he must have seen. And I think, wow, he must have had the most amazing life, an absolutely incredible life. he travels around with his camera, explaining different things that he can see, and he's in this privileged position to see some absolutely gorgeous, majestic natural events all over the planet. So he is a celebrity that I look up to, I admire. What about you? Are there any famous celebrities that you look up to? And from there, I'm going to read a little dialogue related to this topic. And again, 2 weeks ago on the podcast, I also read a dialogue related to applications. So I'm going to change my voice a little bit to read both roles. And it's a conversation between Zara and Luis, all about celebrities and fame. And if you find articles useful and you want me to feature them every week in the podcast, please confirm it to me in the comments. Anyway, let's get started. Zara. I was reading an article about what it's really like to be famous, and honestly, it sounds exhausting. I know what you mean. Fame can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, you get recognition and opportunities, but on the other, your life becomes public property. Exactly. I imagine every mistake you make getting blown up on social media. It must feel like living in a fishbowl with constant scrutiny. And the pressure is relentless. Some celebrities try to reinvent themselves constantly to stay relevant. It's like they're on this never-ending treadmill. True, and the paparazzi are always lurking, waiting to catch even the smallest misstep. There's no real privacy. But some people genuinely thrive under the spotlight. They soak up the limelight and use their influence to make positive changes. That's what public adoration feels like. When fans genuinely care about you, your work, and your message. But it's a rare balance. Right. For every superstar with legions of fans, there are countless others struggling under the weight of fame. There's this idea that being famous means you've made it, but it's not always glamorous. I think social media has changed everything. Now, influencers, people who became famous just by posting online, can have as much reach as movie stars or athletes. Yeah, but that fame can be shallow. It's often tied to trends instead of lasting achievements. Still, it's fascinating to see how celebrities use their platforms. Some advocate for social causes, while others just sell products. That's the thing. Fame doesn't guarantee talent or integrity, but it does give a voice. And once you have that voice, you can shape culture, opinions, and even politics. But at what cost? The pressure, the criticism, and loss of privacy must take a toll on mental health. Absolutely. Fame can be thrilling, but it's also a huge responsibility, and not everyone is prepared for that. Okay, there we have the dialogue. That is the conversation talking about the responsibility and the ups and downs and pros and cons of fame. Some people will thrive under pressure and having the spotlight on you, whilst other people might struggle with the weight of fame. And just thinking about that, it is sad that there are many gifted, talented singers, rock stars, famous people who unfortunately are unable to handle the pressure of having all eyes on you. Now, again, I'm thinking of a famous English singer, and her name is Amy Winehouse. And I think I watched the film about Amy Winehouse maybe a few weeks ago, so it's fresh in my memory. And she had a very traumatic, problematic lifestyle when she was famous. She had what it seems to be a toxic family environment and then also a toxic boyfriend. So she definitely wasn't helped out at all. But I wonder what role fame played. I wonder if having paparazzi always speaking about you and invading your privacy can take a toll on you and make you struggle mentally. Because if you don't have any privacy and you have such high expectations because you are famous, it must kill you inside if you disappoint people or you don't live up to expectations. So I think we, as civilians in society, should also be aware of this, that being famous isn't all it's cracked up to be, as I mentioned earlier. You know, it's not as good as people think it might be because it can have a detrimental effect on your mental health. And that's why I guess all celebrities have therapy sessions as well, because it must be such a heavy weight on your shoulders if people are always expecting so much from you. So, yeah, that's an interesting thing to think about as well. Now, let's move on and finish off with a nice advanced activity related to expressions, some idioms. So, again, this is the PowerPoint that we were looking at in my group classes this week. And we've got 10 relatively similar advanced idioms related to fame. And what I'm going to do is draw a line to match all of these words and phrases. The first idiom is one that I actually used earlier, trying to make it naturally. And it is rise to stardom. Rise to stardom. What does it mean if you rise to stardom? Well, you have to find the meaning on the right and match it. So to rise to stardom is, I believe, to become famous quickly. If you rise to stardom, you suddenly become famous, which is very similar to become known or respected. But you know, I think there's a slight nuanced difference. The next idiom is a household name. I use the word a public figure quite a few times, but a household name is a name that every household will be familiar with. So let's find the meaning. A household name. It is someone that everyone knows. Again, David Beckham around the world is a household name. The third expression is in the limelight. To be in the limelight. And if you're in the limelight, you are in the spotlight. You are the center of attention. So I'm going to match this with being the center of attention. The fourth expression is a claim to fame. If you have a claim to fame, basically you have a story or a reason to be well known, a reason to be famous. So a claim to fame is a reason to be famous. Now, the fifth idiom is focused on music. It is a one-hit wonder. And that's the classic song that an artist might make and it becomes a tune. It becomes a banger that everybody loves. But then they don't have any success after that. They're not able to follow up that initial success. So a one-hit wonder is simply a single success. Next up, we have media darling. Media darling. What is a media darling? It is essentially a person that the media, journalists, paparazzi, they kind of compliment, respect, or like. So a media darling is someone who is favored by the press. After that, number 7, we have a sellout crowd. Again, thinking about music in particular, if you have a sellout crowd, then, well, all of the tickets were sold. So, let's see, it is an audience that fills a venue. And now here we have had their 15 minutes of fame. So this is related to being a one-hit wonder. If you had your 15 minutes of fame, it means that you were famous, but very briefly. He had his 15 minutes of fame. He wasn't famous for very long. Now, number 9 and number 10, we have the last two. The penultimate one is make a name for yourself. And if you make a name for yourself, you become known. People will be familiar with your name. So the last one is living on borrowed time. And this could also be used for jobs. If you are the manager of a football team, and maybe you should be fired, you should be sacked, you're kind of living on borrowed time. It means your moment should have already passed. So here it means their fame has already passed. So there we have 10 idioms related to fame and celebrities in English. But let's go a step further and let's fill in the gaps. So again, if you're not watching this and just listening, that's absolutely fine. But the scenario is now you can see 10 different sentences that all have gaps, and you have all of these 10 expressions on the right. So your job is to try to guess the correct idiom to fill in the gaps. I'm going to read the sentence, and then the second time I will read it, including the idiom. Ready? Let's go. Number 1. After his viral video, he almost overnight. After his viral video, he rose to stardom almost overnight. He very quickly became famous. Number 2. That singer is now everyone knows her name. That singer is now a household name. Everyone knows her name. Good job. Number 3. Ever since the scandal, she's been and under public scrutiny. Ever since the scandal, she's been in the limelight and under public scrutiny. Remember, in the limelight is essentially in the spotlight, the public eye. Number 4. His was winning that talent show. His claim to fame was winning that talent show. That's the reason why he was famous. Number 5. The band was just a They disappeared after one hit. The band was just a one-hit wonder. They disappeared after one hit. A one-hit wonder. Number 6. The young actor became a during awards season. The young actor became a media darling during awards season. In other words, all of the press were constantly praising him, saying he's amazing. He's a media darling. Number 7. The concert was packed. The concert was packed. A sellout crowd. A sellout crowd. The crowd, the tickets, sold out. Number 8. That reality star has... no one talks about them now. That reality star has had their 15 minutes of fame. No one talks about them now. They're not famous anymore. Number 9. She worked hard to in the film industry. She worked hard to make a name for herself in the film industry. And last but not least, number 10. Some fear fame and feel like they're Some fear fame and feel like they're living on borrowed time. It's like their fame is about to end. It's about to run out. And they're going to become forgotten by the public. Okay, and that's it, I believe. I've been chatting for 45 minutes. I've taught you 10 different idioms. I've been giving you all of my opinions and my feelings about celebrities, fame, and their responsibility. And I read out that dialogue as well. So, I've been Lewis. I hope you've been enjoying this podcast. Let me know if you have any thoughts or questions for me to answer in the next one, and I appreciate you listening until the end. You're the best. So thank you, and see you next time. Bye-bye.